Welcome, everybody, to the 100-Year Lifestyle, where we are transforming health and longevity worldwide so that you and your loved ones can live at 100% for 100 years and beyond. And we have a provider spotlight here with a good friend. I've known him now for several years, Dr. Matt Sleppy from the great state of Pennsylvania, Indiana, Pennsylvania, which could be confusing to some people, right?
That's correct. Yes, it
'Cause
can. Happens a
you're
lot.
not in Indiana, you're in Pennsylvania.
We're in Pennsylvania, Western PA.
Western PA, and you're doing amazing things out there, Dr. Matt. I'm really inspired by you and your team, Peggy, and some of the others that I've gotten to meet at different seminars and events. And so you're our provider spotlight now, and you're doing amazing things. Tell us about your practice, Sleppy. What's the name of it, first of all, the official name? It's sleppy.net, SLEPPY.net is your website. But what's the official name of your practice? And talk to us a little bit about what you're doing and how you got here.
So it's Sleppy Chiropractic Family Wellness Center, and I've been in practice since about 2003, actually. And time has flown by, and it's one of those. Man, couldn't see myself doing anything else, and it's been a wonderful journey, if you will. And I get into chiropractic through a football injury. Actually, I hurt my neck playing football, and it was one of those things where you're kind of the second string, and you're used as the defense for the first string offense to practice on. So
Me
I
too.
got,
That's my
yeah,
story too. We share that.
yeah, I got blindsided and on a play and injured my neck. And next thing you know, I'm in the shower the next morning, taking a shower, and literally my neck stuck and I could not move it. The pain was immense. And here I am, 14 years old and almost 15, and it was scary. And so, of course, here I am trying to figure out what to do. And I got out of the shower and went and saw my mother, and she's like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "I can't move my neck." And my dad was a union carpenter, and he had had a certain amount of experience with just back related pain, seeing a chiropractor. So my mother took me to his chiropractor, and it was like any kind of pain that you could be into. It's intimidating, and a lot of times, it's hard to know what to do for that. And here, this Dr. Espy, he practices in a small little town near us, and he still practices today in his 70s.
Wow.
And so we see some mutual patients at times, but he gave me this adjustment in my neck, and man, it was like instantly I could tell a difference. And went back in a couple days. He worked on me again, and miraculously, I want to say, is I just went from a 9 out of 10 pain scale to 2 or 3, where it's like, okay, there's something about this, and that really intrigued me. As a young man, and a lot of times in junior high, you're trying to figure out what do I want to do with my life, and everybody's asking you that. And that started me down this road of chiropractic, and it's been a great journey, and learning about health and the trueness of where it comes from. And I think we take for granted a lot of times how valuable health is.
It's such an important message and story. We have the same story. And I think today, I look back on that time because I got injured at 15. I got blindsided. I was second team. We have almost exactly the same story. And it's more relevant today than ever, I think, talking about it from a 100-year lifestyle perspective, 50 years later, 40 years later, whatever it is for you, because I know in your practice, you're seeing people that had similar traumas or injuries and they went a different route. And some of them got addicted to pain pills. Some of them now have severe degeneration because they never got to the cause. They were just treating symptoms. And we get to see with our wisdom now, fast forward however many people we've helped, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. For us with the 100-Year Lifestyle, reaching millions of people with these messages, that when you look back and then you look at today, and tell me about some of the people that you see today that are maybe in their 50s and 60s that got injured way back when, but they didn't take this route.
Well, yeah, well, I could just relate that to myself. If I wouldn't have had this experience or my mother knowing to take me at that time, my life could look totally different. What it is, we see these people that are injured, and as the years and decades go by, and the degeneration and decay starts to kick in, and a lot of times they just didn't know. And I think that's a big part what drives me is just sharing this. And, sometimes people relate you as like an evangelist because you're out there talking in the community, trying to teach people a different way, and uh, really trying to prevent people from just chasing their symptoms. And I think that's what really drew me to chiropractic once I started to delve more into it. And really, it's the philosophy of chiropractic that really, I think, is the heart of it all. And yeah, we use different means of providing these things to help the body heal and function better, but we're just working along with it. We're not trying to replace it. And I think that's the big difference here is we understand that there's inherent powers, or we like to call it innate intelligence in the body, and that's really what keeps people healthy. And I think if COVID taught us anything, you can't just look around and say, "Hey, that person looks healthy." Because I can relate back to knowing a few, I would say, very healthy men in their late to early 50s, to, succumbing to some of those types of viruses. And it's really opened up the eyes of the world to understand that health is not just merely the absence of symptoms. Okay, there's a lot more to it, and I think that's where the 100-year lifestyle comes into play, where we start layering in different aspects of people's health, neurology first, and then helping them with their nutrition, always getting into the structure of what they're dealing with in their spines and joints and knees and hips. And if you can keep people strong and have enough endurance, they can really live an independent life. And I think that that's the scary thing nowadays, at least as I look down the road here and I see my father, who has really, his health has declined significantly. And I'll put it blatantly, he's dealing with polypharmacy, and he's got multiple doctors, and he's got a concoction of 5 to 7 pills in the morning, 5 to 7 at night. And his quality of life has really, really decreased. And it's like the difference between, staying alive and living a quality life. There's such yeah, and I guess a difference in philosophy is really what it comes down to of what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I'm glad you brought up polypharmacy because anybody that has aging parents or grandparents at this point, we are getting the advance notice. We talk about this all the time. We're getting the advance notice that our parents and grandparents never received, that whether we like it or not, want to or not, we will probably live longer than we ever thought. So the question is, how do we get there? Do we want to get there in style with health and vitality? Or do we want to get there rotting away on 5, 7, 10 different medications? And it's a good point that you bring up because a lot of people don't realize, Dr. Matt, that they have choices because they are bombarded with the drug ads on television, and they're telling you what the drug is going to do. They have to tell you this could cause death, and all these other things, but they're never measured together. These polypharmacies, these drug interactions are never really measured. And so when you start to talk to people about their body's ability to heal itself and removing interference and these different things that are related to chiropractic principles and philosophy, the nervous system, et cetera, what are some of the things that you want them to know so that they can make a good decision and feel confident in their decision and follow through, and hopefully not just by themselves, but raising their family in this new, different 125-year-old, really eternity centered philosophy?
Yeah. Yeah, I think health in nowadays world is not just by chance. I think a lot of people don't realize every decision that they make will lead them to or from their health. And what we're finding is with patients who come in, usually they have a snowball effect of things that have occurred over their lifetime and maybe it's more education based. They were just not taught the right things to be doing. And, with things that are changing in the political world right now, and we're starting to look at how do we get into really helping people understand health, and we subsidize good healthy food versus junk food, if you will. And I think that as people start to see the difference of how much better they feel as well as how much better they can act, okay, and function in the world, they're going to really start to drive that into their families. And I have four very beautiful, healthy children, and I've been very blessed, for my wife to be able to raise them. But my wife, she's an RN, she's a nurse, and interesting enough, she spent many years in neurointensive care and ER and recovery rooms, and it's a totally different world. And I think it's one of the things that makes us very strong because we have different perspectives, but we also have a unified philosophy of, the body first, and lean on it before you try to drive it any different way with anything synthetic. So I think that's really what we have to try to instill to people.
And I think more and more, because of what's happened over since 2020, more and more people are awake to the misinformation, the real misinformation and disinformation, which are the ads that we're seeing on television all the time, and
Mm.
the media propaganda. And I see more and more people, they'll ask me this, Matt, and I don't know if you get this or not, but they'll ask me, Dr. Plasker, how did you know? Because we early on, I mean, I got invited to speak at a rally in front of the CDC opposing all of the policies, the masking policies, the mandating vaccine policies, and concerned about all of those things. And there were a lot of other people that, like you and like that, were there at that rally, but you weren't at that rally, but who were speaking out against it. And at the time, we were like that, we were the outliers. We were the people that were the crazy people and the nonconformists and the conspiracy theorists. And the reality of it is that we were right. And people ask me today, Dr. Plasker, how did you know right out of the gate? How did you know? And so I'm going to ask you, as a chiropractor in practice for all this time, how did you know when all of that was going down that we were being fed misinformation and disinformation while being called that? And the reason why I think that's so important is because now, because we have that compass that's been so strong and proven to be right over time, we become even that much more followable by people who are holistic, but by people that never would have made chiropractic their primary care. You know what I'm saying?
Correct. Yeah.
So how did you know?
Well, I think it really comes down to our training. I had a lot of biochemistry, and you really start to learn, for even microbiology, it's part of our education, and you start to look at this stuff very, I would say, very similar intellectually as what maybe a traditional doctor would, because you understand the function and the complexity of the body. But when you start tossing in these conjectures of, hey, let's wear a mask that's, has a certain micron permeability, and you're like, wait a minute, that if you're truly trying to protect yourself from a biohazard, you can't just wear a mask. Like, these things were just almost like foolish. And the rhetoric that goes into and you can get into testing of when they, literally the FDA, when they go to roll out something, there's years and years of testing. And to speed something up like that, the volatility that can come from that without proper studying and safety things, it's scary. And to force people into that, and now here we are, this is, end of 2024, and we're seeing all these different types of cases that people have been injured and such. And I mean, vaccine injuries are nothing new. I mean, a lot of people think they are, but they're not. There's a specific federal fund that has been set aside since 1987 that allows, money to be set aside for people's children or individuals who've been injured from some of these procedures. That nothing comes without risk. And but I think informed consent is probably the biggest thing, where when you force people to do something against their will, or people are literally leaving their occupations that they've invested their entire lives in because they just don't feel right, and they have their own bodies on an immunity. And it's one of those things where, I think it just, it just did not smell right at all. And I think, as a free citizen here in America, I think we really did a poor job, and we didn't listen to really the true experts and some of the epidemiologists. They're like, the Great Barrington Project was, put out. You're probably familiar with that.
Yeah.
And these are very highly educated epidemiologists that basically said, hey, if you do this and you lock all the healthy people and the elderly down, at some point here, you're going to have people go out and fight the fight, as in get immunity immunity through this procedure, or else, you're going to have more problems down the road. And sure enough, that's what happened. And, look at the children right now, the psychological effects and the education delays that we're seeing. And it's a snowball. And this really comes down to, I think, philosophy. You really have to look at this. And if we had an inside out philosophy with this, we would have let our bodies function at the capacity that they did, and did everything we could to keep them healthy as our bodies were getting this immunity. And I think we tried to go and outsmart it science wise. And our body is so complicated. And you change one thing over here, and there's 10 steps down the cascade of these actions that, even the people just don't know, even the high qualified scientists that study this. And that's where the
Yeah.
interactions come from.
Yeah, it's so true. And people would ask me, how, Dr. Plasker, how did you know? And I say, what? Because I'm a chiropractor. I have a high-tech BS meter, and I could tell right away that something was not right. And we talk about, and I know you talk about this, that the body has an innate intelligence and one of my favorite sayings out of the 100-Year Lifestyle that's relevant to everybody listening, regardless of your age. Listen to this. This is really important. That your innate intelligence, your body's innate intelligence, will organize around the thoughts that you think, the choices you make, and the lifestyle that you live. It will organize around that. So if you choose you want to run triathlons, you'll change how you eat, think, move, do all those different things, and your body will organize around it. You'll get lean muscle, you'll get stronger, your stamina will increase, your lung capacity goes up. If you wanted to be a bodybuilder, same person, and you change your lifestyle, your innate would organize around it. And if you are scared of bugs and bacteria and viruses and started giving yourself all kinds of artificial immune strategies that end up causing all kinds of problems, your body organizes around that, which could lead to all kinds of immune problems. And so you see people now, Dr. Matt, with people that knew and didn't follow those procedures. You see people that maybe followed some of those mass media propaganda craziness that was going on, and they're waking up. Is it ever too late for some of these people? Talk to me about some of the people that are further on in life and they start to come in. How does the nervous system, and you working with their nervous system and these other factors, how does it make a difference for them down the road? They're older, maybe they've done some things that were not good for them and they want to come back around. Talk to me about that.
Well, the body is resilient, and it's amazing to see people respond at every different stage of life. We take care of people from the aspect of womb to tomb. So it's infants in the office from our geriatric patients, but the body has a finite timeline, if you will, and if you have a lot of damage, yeah, you can't necessarily get back completely everything at times. But it's amazing how much benefit people can get even starting later in life, to understand their frame and function. And it's we've seen so many people respond well through chiropractic care, and just really teaching them different ways of taking care of themselves. So I don't think it's ever too late. I think it's important to understand where health comes from and start to really teach that in the younger generations. And I think when you start to see that type of carrying on of information, we'll have a big change in this country of how we care for ourselves and what we really do to basically keep ourselves healthy, if you will.
Yeah, and for anybody that might be listening, maybe your community, people in your community, our community, and communities everywhere, and you're thinking for yourself, is it too late for you? And here's what I like to tell patients. I remember telling Max this, the 100-year-old man that influenced a lot of what we're doing now. I remember saying to him when he asked me at the age of 98, Dr. Plasker, can you help me? And I said to him, I have no idea, but as long as you're alive and breathing, and there's life flowing over your nervous system, let's give it a shot. And he responded. And I think that's what's important with anybody here, is that if you're alive and breathing and aware enough to listen to this podcast or to have a conversation with someone that listened to this message, then you're worth the shot. I mean, why not give it a shot? Your body's making new cells every single day. Why not have your body make new cells with healthy nerve supply go into every cell, tissue, and organ of your body? And so it's not just about back pain, is it?
Oh no, not at all. And as the research continues to catch up with chiropractic, it's chiropractor's been in a big fight for decades in trying to come out of oppression. And it's interesting where you ask people if they ever heard of the Wilkes trials, and they look at you, what's that? And you start to educate them on the historical nature of what chiropractic was fighting against for people. And it's some of those things where in time, I think all that education creates power for people and helps them make better decisions. I was fortunate last year to spend some time at Life University, going through some of their neuro training, and looking at different aspects of how the brain functions and all the different ways to help people with not only head injuries but even more severe issues and such from brain trauma. But the brain is an amazing organ, and it is much like a muscle. And you have to kind of work it, and you got to provide it good oxygen and fuel. And by doing that, it's amazing what it can do with your body. And I just trying to think back of a couple patients we've helped. I see these young kids that get these concussions, if you will. And they go through the standard procedure of give them rest, and the months go by, and they're still dealing with some of these symptoms. And you start to look at this in a different realm where you're like, well, wait a minute, there's a disconnect here, and there's not some sort of proper nerve flow. And there's so much better ways we can diagnose that, and looking at how do we help the body facilitate its healing. And it's almost impossible for some of these kids to get a head injury without a neck injury, if you will. And it's interesting how sometimes just a few treatments in these kids, their youth and their resilience, they start to turn around where, like, where would they have been if they wouldn't have been able to have somebody recommend, have you ever tried a chiropractor? They could have been living that type of nightmare, if you will, okay, for decades. So I think it's so
Yeah.
powerful what we do.
Yeah, I agree. And it's so interesting because, my oldest son, Jacob Plasker, who became a chiropractor, and he specializes in functional neurology. He's the diplomate in that out in Bend, Oregon. And back then, this is 1990 when he had the accident. So this is 34 years ago. And I don't think the word neuroplasticity even existed, which is how the brain can create new brain cells and new pathways if it's stimulated, exercised, et cetera. And I don't think that even existed back then, but we knew it because of things that we were studying that were out of the mainstream. Glenn Doman's work was fantastic back then. He had the Institute for the Achievement of Human Potential, and he talked about that. He had a special program for brain injured kids, and he had a special program, a well baby program, how to multiply your baby's intelligence. And Lisa actually attended that program, and we talked about that and implemented in our life even before Jacob's accident. So we had everything set up to help him when he was injured. And so now he's doing fantastic today. Gave us our first granddaughter, Zoe. She's amazing. But I think that's really important because I also think if you look back, people didn't think that it was possible. The
Mm,
experts didn't think it was
mm.
possible. They didn't even know that neuroplasticity could happen. They said, you're paralyzed, you're paralyzed. Bam, that's it. So let's make you comfortable. And they didn't look at any of these other issues. And, we've talked about this on our training calls because I know you and your team are on a lot of our 100-year lifestyle calls. And we talk about this concept of degenerative joint disease, where degeneration, that people are given 15 million at least people a year are diagnosed with arthritis or osteoarthritis or degenerative joint disease. And we say how degeneration, and they tell them, well, you're stuck with it. You're just degenerated. Take these drugs. But what we're learning is degeneration is not a disease. Degeneration is degeneration. And if it can degenerate and it could regenerate, and is it really degeneration or is it protective regeneration? And so here we are in the arthritic world, exploring people, seeing people heal with these problems that we're helping, every day. And they think that a lot of them think they have to spend the rest of their life suffering. So talk about some of these people who have had those kinds of diagnoses and why what we're talking about is relevant to them.
I think I'd like to talk about it in the realm of like referrals that we get. We have different doctors that will refer into the practice where and I'm trying to work on this, but it's almost like the patient has tried everything else. Okay. And basically the doctor holds up their arms and say, have you ever thought of trying chiropractic? And it's almost like the last resort. And it's interesting how many patients we've helped where, they if they would have just come to us first, could have saved themselves years of suffering and expense. And there's just so many things that go into that. And the thing about it is when you start to correct the body, allow proper nerve flow, and restore some of the biomechanical changes that have occurred, the body will start to take that and adapt to that new, mechanical and nerve flow. And it's really amazing to see where people start to regain some of their health and be able to get back into certain activities of life that they maybe taken a step back from. I mean, I seem to be taking care of a lot of pickleballers lately, and these people, and it's like one of the most exploding types of activities in this. I don't want to say older population, but I guess there's people in their 30s and 40s that are enjoying this and such. But and you see people that are playing for hours a day just for routine exercise, and you start to they come in for injuries, and then you start to teach them more about the bigger part of this, and they're like, I wish I'd have known this years ago, or I wish I'd have been here years ago. And I think that's really our root cause with the 100-year lifestyle, is to help people understand the bigger picture. And and when we start to get into the children's minds, and they see this, and I think that's what will really change how we look at health in this country, and really change the sick care mindset of what we're dealing with.
Yeah, pickleballers are serious, man. They
They
are.
are.
They take their pickleball seriously. We have some pickleball. I'm like, what are you diving into fences? And are you like in the pickleball Olympics? Because it is.
Yeah.
They're really passionate about it.
Mm,
And you said something here that I think is also relevant, because if you knew, and here's our core question, right? If you knew you lived to 100, how would you change your life today? And we're getting
mm,
that advance notice. And here's where what we're doing and what we're talking about, why it's different than how everybody else is talking about it. The other side and the others will say, well, you're living on borrowed time. No, this is birthright time. From the moment of conception, embedded in your genetics was the innate intelligence to live to 80, 90, 100 years and beyond, healthy, if you took care of yourself all along the way. And so it's exciting. We're seeing, like, we have a woman she's had 2 national championships in soccer at the age of 60. We
mm,
have a guy 67 years old, 68 years old. He's playing tennis now. He thought he couldn't play tennis anymore. He's an old-time college football player, and now he's eating better. He's getting adjusted every week. He's keeping his body aligned and balanced. He's got those degenerative changes that he thought were a permanent part of his crippleness for the rest of his life, and now he's playing 2.5 hours of tennis 2 to 3 to 4 days a week at a very high level, getting his old college football spirit back. And so it's birthright time, not borrowed time. And so if somebody, you have people, they're seeing this all over your practice, you're talking about it, you're actually teaching the younger generation, going to colleges, teaching some of this information. How do the students react to these conversations when you talk to them about the 100-year lifestyle and chiropractic care and the things that you're doing in your practice?
I think they get it. It's so to them, it's just norm, and I think because they haven't been, if you will, brainwashed any other way. And I think that's the generation or the group that we need to kind of get a hold of, because they're going to be the one that's going to make a lot of these decisions in the future for our country. And they're pioneers that have been there talking about this for years. And if we can continue to carry that torch, if you will, in these younger generations, I truly believe it'll change our country and how we start to really care for ourselves. It's a shame because relative, we're such a small percentage of the world's population, but man, we consume more. What is it? Over 50% of the pharmaceuticals in the world, and we're only 5% of the world's population. So, and I think that's huge. It just shows the education, if you will, of what we're trying to teach people. We see these young people coming out of COVID where, oh, they're having anxiety and stress. Well, let's give them some sort of, depression or anxiety medication. It's like, well, wait a minute, hold on here. You're changing the brain chemistry of, a teenager, which half the time, I don't know about your teenagers, but, sometimes their brain chemistry is as all over the place as it can be in that stage. So, but I just think it's scary to think that we've got to medicate these children to the point where that we're trying to trick the body into conforming to what we want it to become, versus really getting down to some of the root cases. And and that's where we talk about philosophy. It's really the getting to the root causes of these things. And a lot of times, yeah, there's nerve flow issues that we see and structural things in the spine that we can help with. But even sometimes, you have to get these kids into the right environments and the right places so that their thought patterns are better and such. So, and I think it's just a total different way we have to look at things nowadays than we should have been, of course, all along.
Yeah, and it's given them the confidence to say no or to say yes to the things that they innately know that are good for them. And I think that, back in COVID, we've talked about that quite a few times on this call, but during that time, they told us, the media and the quote unquote experts, which we now know are propagandists who are profiting from this insane thing that we just went through. But they told us what to see, and they told us what to think, and they told us what to hear, even though what we saw, thought, and heard, everything inside of us was screaming, that doesn't make any sense. And so giving these young people the confidence in themselves to trust their innate intelligence and common sense over nonsense is so important, especially now, because like you said, this is the generation that is going to hopefully lead us and lead this planet and lead society in a way that keeps it healthy. And I don't know, they can't, there's no oops here. You know what I'm saying? There's no way to go back and say, oops. No, this was a strategic plan that was had against, the youth of our country, not just with COVID, but all the entire vaccine schedules being exposed now, causing all kinds of harm. And so, I love chiropractic 39 years in. I love the practice of chiropractic because the world, every time something happens and this trend comes and goes, we get proven more right every day. And I'm going to not talk so much in just a minute, but I want to give one more example of what I'm talking about here with this guy, this older guy who came in just yesterday. He came back. He came in one time like 3-4 months ago. Severe degeneration, all kinds of problems, and he's had it for obviously decades. And he just decided not to continue or to take care of himself, and chiropractically, and with his body, getting his body healthy naturally. So about a week ago, he had a mini stroke, and he had severe degeneration in his neck, mini stroke, unconscious, dizzy, all kinds of things. They couldn't find it in his brain. At least they told him it was a mini stroke. They couldn't find it in his brain. They couldn't find what happened, and they couldn't find this area. So they let him go, and they said, just take this medication. When he came back, because his girlfriend of a long time said, you got to go get your neck taken care of. He got his first adjustment yesterday. It's like the lights literally came on in his body. Like, how come I didn't do this years ago? His dizziness went away, his headaches went away. And not everybody responds that way, but here we are. I mean, you see these kinds of results. How hungry are you and your team to get your hands and your philosophy and your ideas now that all of this has been revealed and we're still here? How hungry is your team to serve your community?
Oh, it's what drives our vision every day in the office, to care for our community and to bring awareness for really where health comes from. And my team is right there alongside me because they see the changes. And it's interesting when you bring somebody in to work in a chiropractic office. A lot of times they have such a small picture of what that really looks like. But after a few weeks, they see these different types of miracles, if you will, but it's really just the body doing what it's supposed to do. And it's why I love being a chiropractor. And when you have the gift of being able to help people restore back to their health and their lives and be able to do the things that they want to do, I couldn't see myself doing anything else. And it's really I think as a community, when people start to see that, it just drives everybody to you. I mean, we have, I don't know, over 400 and some Google reviews at our clinic, that it's just really neat to sit down and read the stories sometimes that people put in there, and the changes and such. And some people have really walked some hard lives, okay, and they found us, and through usually word of mouth a lot of times. And that's that grassroots effort of people out there that have benefited and talking about it. And I think the 100 Year Lifestyle brings a different way to this. Of it brings it more as a unified group of understanding, like we're taking this to the world and helping people really understand, like you got to get down to make sure that your body is functioning optimally when you're really trying to take care of yourself and your health and optimize it. So
Yeah, so cool. And we came out with just recently a new healthy longevity package that includes the 100 Year Lifestyle book, a new guidebook, workbook to organize, help people organize the changes in their life that they want to make, in an audio book. It's a powerful package that you can get. It's not expensive. It's on 100yearlifestyle.com. We want everybody to have it. We want you to do the work and get the understanding. And we also created a homeschool package out of the similar types of materials to help younger people to learn how to live differently. And here we are. As we wind down. It's 2025 in just a couple of weeks. That this is going to come out in 2025, but we're not quite in 2025 yet at the time of this recording. What is your hope, prayer, desire for 2025 and beyond, and the world of health and healthcare and vitality? What would you like to see for the people in your community? Because there's never been a better time with RFK Jr., his Make America Healthy Again agenda taking root. We've been supporting that for a long time. We actually had the Children's Health Defense bus in front of our office for a special event, which was kind of fun and exciting. What would you like to see, and how can people, from your perspective, get on board to make these changes that our society so desperately needs?
I think health is something that everybody should have access to. I think they have to have the understanding of where it comes from, where it doesn't. And I think as a community, a nation, the world, we've really got to dig into this. And it's not a political issue, really. It's not. It's not left, right, middle, whatever. Okay. It's literally, this affects each and every one of us and each and every one of our children. So we have to really get down to the roots of understanding some of the basic principles of how your body runs and functions. And when our governments, if you will, start to see that, and you have the right people in place to bring light to this, it's really going to change how we live as a community and as a country. Because I hate to say it, there's a lot of these things that are occurring in our world. They're related to a lot of these medication abuses and polypharmacy, and the quality of life that people are losing, and they just haven't been taught right. And we have to really dig into that and really help to change that type of thinking, if you will. And it can be done, and I think someone at the helm like RFK is going to do that. Okay, I think he's got the right mindset for it, and if he can get the right people collected around him, and the right types of providers, which I think are a lot of chiropractors in our philosophical mindset, that's where you start to do this.
Yeah, we have an article that's actually coming out. By the time you're hearing this, it's already out. It's called "From Flexner to RFK," from Flexner to Kennedy, 115 years, which is the Flexner report, is what created this pharmaceutical takeover of the world. And that was back in 1910. Here we are, 2025, with hopefully the policies that support the next 115 years and beyond, which is people realizing they have the innate ability to live active, healthy lives to 80, 90, 100 years and beyond, 100% for 100 years. Love your age. It's never too age to start, as we say. Have some nerve. We tell them life takes nerve. You got to have some guts and courage. So, closing thought, my friend, before we sign off and move on and go to work serving our communities.
Yeah, this is it's been great chatting with you, Eric. I love, being in this group with you, and so many other wonderful providers that are there that really have the empathy of care for their patients, and the drive to see them live better lives. And I think that's the fundamental part about this. It's that caring, loving heart that so many of us have. to see this change.
Awesome. Well, appreciate you so much. Big hugs to your family. We're honored and grateful to have you as a part of this vision, and keep serving those people. And for everybody listening, love your age, adjust your lifestyle, enjoy a sensational century starting right now, starting today. Thanks, Matt. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Doc.
Talk to you
Bye-bye.
next time.